Hello, I'm Aruna Bhayani. I'm the author of the book Antarctica to Zimbabwe. I partly live in Goa for 6 months in the UK. I was born in Uganda, and as a child, I spent my first 17 years in Uganda, and then the last 20 in Goa, and anything in between, it's been in England. So I was brought up in England. My education, my working life was in England. So I was started with the best of three worlds, the three different cultures, the languages, the three different lifestyles. What got me interested in the book. I started writing this book. My interests are many and varied, but my biggest passion is travel. To see the world, to travel around the world and see the world. And I believe I've done some of it now. Passion is cooking as well. Because of my travel, I've tried all the different cuisines in different countries. So cooking food is my interest, even though I'm a vegetarian. But I have managed, and I've got the vegetarian version of dishes in other countries. And my original book 20 years back was going to be called Around the World with 8 Spices. That because I was cooking at the host people, which I can talk when I talk about the book. But that never materialized, and I finally got this book out and called it A to Z. Right. So the biggest inspiration was my father, my papa, as I called him. When I was about 14 years old, he decided to take me on a road trip of Uganda. I mean, this was in the 60s. So it was dirt roads. But he showed me, the start of my teenage, what travel is about nature, the beauty of a country, culture, the traditions. And that kind of got me hooked into travel. That is when I first wrote the diary. It wasn't even a proper diary. Papa used to have an A4 paper in the car. So I started writing the names of little villages and the time we got there and the adventures we saw. And that kind of carried on till this day. So I write the diary every day. And he was the biggest inspiration. But before doing the solo travels, so my earlier part was, a lot of it was with the family when I was a child, with parents, with my siblings. I have a lot of cousins, so some of it with my cousins, and so a lot of with my friends, ex-husband. It's only in the recent years I've started doing solo travels. So solo, some of it was just entirely solo, like I did a year's trip. Took a year out of work. I did a year to starting with South Africa, Australasia, Oceania country, and Latin America. That was a year. That was totally solo. And I've done several trips. I just booked the flight, and then I sort everything out myself as I go. This is before the times of Google search, so I would just go and find out. And then in later years, I've joined some organized solo groups, because there are many solo groups, but some other single people, and not necessarily single. A partner doesn't want to go, doesn't have time, and that is what I've done, and I quite like it, because no two people, I think, are compatible to travel and have the same likes or dislikes. The question that I've been asked is, you must be loaded to go around the world. You must be really rich. And it's not. For me, I think the biggest thing is you have to have that passion, the zest to travel, which was my biggest thing. Then you have to have the time. I took a very early retirement. And then the third thing is the money. And that is, you can decide whether to stay in a hostel or a 5-star hotel. I mean, I lost my father when I was 21, so he wasn't there. But if he was there, he would have fully supported me, because at the age of 17, he sent me to England on my own, a teenager, totally on my own to a new country, because he gave me that confidence. So he would have definitely supported. My mother, and like any other mother, better you can't go for a whole year. You can't go on your own if things go wrong. But then in the end, she knows that's my passion. Yes, definitely. A lot of countries that were colonized before by European countries, or they still have those influences. Mainly the colonial buildings. Some of them are beautiful, just like in Goa, we have got the Portuguese style buildings, and with the architect, the cuisine comes as well. We have the Goan poi and a lot of things that are Portuguese. Similarly, talking of Portuguese, and another place I went to was Mozambique, which was a Portuguese colony. Then I've been to like Spanish countries that were Spanish, but all of Latin America, apart from Brazil, which who spoke Portuguese, the rest of Latin America, South and Central America speak Spanish, and there were a lot of with the language, the buildings, and the food that actually came from that culture. I went off the beaten tracks, and I did certain trips which were not easy to manage. I've been to dangerous and daring places, and I've had a lot of near misses, but I was survived to tell the tale. I had the certificate of when I survived a hurricane, a storm certificate. After that, when I actually entered the Antarctic continent and stepped into that, I got a certificate to say that I've been to the wilderness place, and that is a certificate I'll treasure forever. So when we went to, even younger I think, went to the equator, which passes through Uganda, not many miles away from where we used to live. At that time, I was a child, and I thought, everybody takes photos here, so we had the photo taken. And then later on, I realized, so that is but at that time, they were not issuing the certificate. So after I left Uganda, I did my first trip there. For Millennium, I wanted to do something special. Talking of the lines of latitudes in the world, there are 5, and I feel I've crossed them all. I went to Iceland, which touches the Arctic Circle. I never got the certificate there. Then Antarctic Circle I've done, which I have a certificate there. Then Tropic of Cancer, many countries go through that. Tropic of Capricorn, even India, which I have. But the certificate or the photo I got of the Tropic of Capricorn was in a recent trip to Namibia in Africa. So my initial box was, I left when I was 17. And I never knew that was going to be a start of my collection. But my uncle who used to come and live with us, my father's brother, he gave me a very pretty little music box, and it had a little emblem of Uganda. He gave me as a farewell gift, which I took it to England. It still plays the music. That is many years back, a little musical box. And then after that, somehow, as I started traveling, I wanted some memento of each country. And obviously, there's the baggage allowance. You have to travel. I never carried a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money. So I wanted something that was easy to carry, unbreakable most of the time. So I started collecting trinket boxes. So they're little boxes, but definitely very, very typical of the country. So something that is like India's, obviously, the Taj Mahal, and a lot of countries with something typical, or if I couldn't find something typical, like you said, the craft. So it's like ebony in one of the place, or ivory, ebony from one of the African countries, ivory from somewhere else, and now there are so many. So now I've got 131.
How to get ivory? It's bad.
No, this is before it was non-ethical, and there was like marble and a lot of the material itself, or the shape. Like I spoke of Iceland, where I'm sorry, it was Albania, where they had these old military bunkers, which was left. It's in a round shape, and I bought a trinket in that shape. France, I've got one with a little Eiffel Tower on it, and something typical. And on top of that, I also collected something because I do like a small, dainty jewelry. So I started collecting small semi-precious, which is not expensive. If I lose, I won't be worried. Something that will fit into the trinket boxes. So a few of my collections were, this was from around the world, where I could find it. Not every country had minerals that are mined in that. So I wanted something typical. For like Argentina, I bought rhodochrosita, it's a pink stone. The jade is from China. This is paua shell, and it's from New Zealand. These are like the cultured pearls, but the colored pearls from Philippines. So if I knew you were going to ask me that, I would have worn all my jewelry. Vasco da Gama. So Vasco da Gama, when he was traveling from Africa to India and the other way around, he wanted to direct himself. There was no all this satellite stuff in those days. So he saw this island that would be on the way to get to Goa, mainly Kerala and Goa. So he named that island Ilha de Goa. And for me, it was important living in Goa. So Lakswadweep and island of Goa, I picked up the shell from there, just an ordinary shell, and I marked as a trinket or something from there, a memento. Extremely, travel is life. It broadens your horizon. You learn so much about different cultures and a lot more about the world. I am aiming this at the parents to let your children go. They have to be safe, and in these days it's so easy with all the technologies. It's very easy. When I did, there wasn't Wi-Fi or anything. You have to be sensible when you travel. You don't flash your big posh camera or things or jewelry. Or I always underdress at the travel where I think it's slightly unsafe. But a lot of countries now are very, very safe. New Zealand is, Uganda is. It is perfectly safe, definitely. So when I did Latin America, I was aware of that. Nowadays everywhere English is spoken. But when I did 2002 to 3, and because I worked for Antarctic Survey, a lot of explorers used to go from South America. They used to run Spanish classes. So I joined them, then I did a crash course again. So Spanish is something I learned, and I knew there'll be a problem. But there were obviously other countries, especially the Middle Asia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, where they speak, or then they spoke Russian or their local dialect, Uzbek or Kazakh. Fortunately, at both the places, I had met up with the local people. So she did in Uzbekistan, a girl who used to be my tenant at one time in UK, and she happened to be in Uzbekistan. So I met her, and we went onto the Silk Route, the ancient Silk Route, which I really wanted to see, which was okay. And then in Kazakhstan, I met people here in Goa, Ginger Hotel, and so I was okay with them. Other places like China, when I went, it was difficult. But I stayed with my Chinese friend who was working, so she would write it down for me. So I had a little diary to show it to a taxi or food to say that I'm a vegetarian. and I managed to do that. This was before the quick translation that you can do on your phone now. Yeah, so because my travel in my life I could not separate, I've traveled all my life. So I've written the book as my experiences per decades. So 60 years or so.
About 60 years.
60 years.
Travel
60 plus, I would say, yeah. So starting from the childhood, yeah.
And how did you go about documenting?
I mean, I forget what I ate last night. No, but if it wasn't for my diaries, no, not. What I do is I keep a little daily diaries, tiny diary. So today will be that people from Harvard were there to interview me. So I keep things like that, and then even like, I paid this bill or something really trivial, but it'll be in today's diary. And then I kept all this diary. Fortunately, the diaries, they moved from Uganda to England to Goa. Fortunately, I didn't lose, apart from very few. I had most of the diaries, thanks to my parents who moved in from, I left as a student. They moved my diaries. And then it went on my loft, and then it went to my brother's loft. And when I split up with my ex-husband, I moved to another house. So he went into my sister's home. She moved to a bigger house. He went to my brother. So we have loft in UK, and so they were all like in little box files. So that is where I wrote, and then it jogged my memory. So once I start thinking of read about, this is where I went in this year, this is what I did, depending on the diary, some small, some big. And then while writing the book, I obviously had to Google a little bit to jog my memory, but the information is what I did. And then, so what happened was the diaries I wrote as I go along, like even today, which started at the age of 14. Then writing the book was a long idea. It never materialized until the pandemic from Goa to UK. And I was stuck here till July, middle of July. So, and obviously it was the lockdown. I couldn't do anything. It's a monsoon. I couldn't swim. I couldn't go out. So I got the diaries of my year's travel and put into, like, I made a travel diary. So these were the notebooks or the diaries that my siblings or my friends often gift me because of my interest. So from the little travel diaries, I just wrote all the relevant things down. So it's all a lot of handwritten information of where I went, what I did. And then when I got back after UK, when I definitely decided I'm writing this book, then I transferred things onto my laptop, and this is how it happened. Some of the things I had to ask, like my younger days, my mom, my uncles, some of the friends I traveled with, I had to ask them to jog my memory. In 19, the COVID started. It was 2020. So from March, from the lockdown till July. So whatever diaries I had here, I started writing them into this. Fortunately, I had these notebooks. I could have written in any place. And so I didn't go onto the laptop because I knew I had several diaries in UK. So I had to go back and ask my siblings to get me all the stuff out of their loft and bring the diaries to me. So again, when I went, I was in 2 weeks of quarantine. And then 2020, when I got back in July, and the lockdowns were on and off, so I couldn't travel. So I had a sudden and a long pause in my travel. Young people have the advantage of having a lot of stamina, which I don't in my later travels. They are fit, they're young, they can move about, they can carry heavy backpacks. I was cheating in the recent years and using trolley. So it is very good to travel when you are young. Only slight disadvantages is, as you're older, you have the financial security a bit more. But young people, I said, there are a lot of young people I met. They were going abroad and finding temporary jobs there to earn extra. or they could nowadays easily take a loan from their parents or from the bank and then pay that back. And again, like I previously mentioned, that finance isn't a big thing. You can either, depending on your budget, stay in a posh hotel or in a guest house or in a hostel, and financially you can like manage that way. Seeing the places, again, I would say to young people that what I did is I would suggest that don't just go for the tick list, that like you are in Peru, you have to see Machu Picchu, or you are in this country, you have to see which you do, obviously you see what, but there are so many other places around which are less off the beaten paths, less trod-roaded paths, and there are some really, really good places. And nowadays, the young people have the greatest advantage of the technology. They can do the search on Google, on AI, so it's so very easy. Use paper diaries. I mean, my nephews and my niece laugh at me. They said, God, you are really old-fashioned. They use their phones for their diaries. So however you do it, but keep a record of where you've been. So in future, not just to write a book, but you can go back and reflect on those memories. There were several trips that I partly booked, and because of the lockdown, it was cancelled. So one trip I did after the book was printed. So that's why I'll just put a little sheet on it if anybody purchases this book now. It was Botswana, Namibia and Angola with beautiful wildlife. So this is what I did after the book purchase. So this was a trip I did last year in September. And then it's not always a far away exotic places. I've been in India because I love India and I've seen every corner of India. Recently, in January this year, I went to Bhuj. I have been to Bhuj a few times, but I went to see the Ran Utsav, the desert festival, which was very interesting. And now there are still countries which I haven't been to. So from whatever is easier to go from Goa, I go like easy to get the flight. I go from here, so I still go to South Korea. I want to do Borneo and Mongolia, and then from the UK, there are still a few places where I haven't been. So but now I take it easy. I'm not so young, so I do the luxury cruises. So the next cruise I've planned is I've done all the Caribbean by cruising, but the next place cruising I'm going to be doing is Alaska. India, I was never born. I never knew. Even to this day, I have no relations. They're all in England. But India is where I fell in love. So 20 years, I have made this my other home. I don't even call it a second home because I like this place than one in England equally. So I call it my other home. This is my summer home. So Goa is my other home. I've been here 20 years and I have no regrets. India, because for me, it's not just a country, it's a continent. It's so diverse. There's so much diversity. There's so much, the different states, the different cuisine for one, cultures, architect. India's got everything that I look into when I travel: nature, wildlife, people, the warmth we have. I mean, only India have things like Atithi Devo Bhava, that, when I travel, the guests are treated as gods. It is the cuisine, the colors, the vibrant colors, and a lot of things that I like. Yeah. Architect, and it's not just the Taj Mahal. Obviously, that is one of the best man-made wonder, I feel. In my eyes, it is beautiful. But besides that, even little temples, the architects are so good. The whitewashed church is here. So everything that I like, I find in India. So my biggest love is my travels are based around water. So I love rivers, lakes, sea, and India's got. I mean, it's a peninsula, so we've got so much sea. There are rivers and waterfalls and lakes, and so that is something I quite like. So I take trip every year when I'm in Goa. I do one trip somewhere within India, and once somewhere abroad.